GB News commentator Calvin Robinson. Good to talk to you, Calvin. Tell us what's the biggest challenge for Liz Truss? Is it the energy crisis and the looming winter in the UK?
The energy crisis is part of it, but there's a bigger issue at play here. It's the cost of living crisis as a whole, or as we call it over here, the cost of lockdown crisis. Because many of us were saying 2 years ago that if you plunge the whole economy into a freeze for months on end, there will be a price to pay. And now we're seeing that price. And as of next month, as of October, energy prices are going up to the point where a lot of people are not going to be able to afford them anymore. We're going up to thousands of pounds per year per household. Now, for Liz Truss to solve this, she's going to have some unity and a different approach. I believe she's going to have to be conservative, which is why I'm quite concerned, because Liz Truss is she's a former Liberal Democrat, and she's obviously been very liberal over the years, not necessarily conservative on all the matters that count. So, firstly, she's got to be economically conservative to solve it, to at least address this situation that we find ourselves in due to her government. And secondly, she's got to be socially conservative to solve all of the cultural issues that we're seeing as a fallout almost to the pandemic. We've had Black Lives Matter, we've had Extinction Rebellion, we've had all of these rebel groups popping up, tearing down statues and disrupting social cohesion. So we need someone strong enough to address this, make the police tough on crime again and all of the things that people care about. Because if crime rates are rising and poverty is rising, we'll see that's a very, very dangerous mix.
Yeah, let me just show you some of what she said about her predecessor, about Boris Johnson, because I think it draws an interesting contrast. Have a look.
Boris, you got Brexit done. You crushed Jeremy Corbyn. You rolled out the vaccine and you stood up to Vladimir Putin. You were admired from Kiev to Carlisle.
There we go. I mean, there's no doubt that Boris Johnson's such a strong figure, especially over Brexit and standing up to Europe and on these foreign policy issues for all these other failings. And this is a very, very tough act for Liz Truss to follow, especially when her own attitude to Brexit has been ambivalent.
Yes, it is a difficult act to follow, but that's by design. And this is actually the fundamental problem of the Conservative Party, in that Boris Johnson was a strong figure, and all around him, the latest intake, the 2019 intake of MPs, are quite mild and meek, and they're the type that will follow the party line, because that's the type of MP that they recruit. They want people that won't challenge them. And I think if Liz Truss wants to be stronger than Boris Johnson, she has to break free from that. And what will be very telling, actually, is what she does with Kemi. Because Kemi Badenoch was the most popular candidate on the grassroots of the party throughout the campaign. She's the most popular candidate in the country. People wanted Kemi Badenoch. She didn't get through because of the way the system is stitched up. Yeah. The parliamentarians have a wider say in the membership of the party. But Liz Truss has promised Kemi Badenoch a place in the cabinet. Now, if she puts her somewhere like trade, for example, we'll know that Liz Truss is keeping her competitors out of arm's reach. She's preventing herself from being challenged, and she wants to look good. Now, if she gives Kemi Badenoch a cabinet position like education, we'll know that she's taking on board the strongest talent around her, using them to her advantage, and actually wants to be a strong leader. Now, I fear she's not going to give Kemi education. I fear she's going to give her something like trade, which will say she's going to be a weaker Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. Liz Truss always wants to appear like she's Margaret Thatcher, just in the same way that Boris Johnson wanted to appear like he was Winston Churchill. But it's the actions, not the words, that are important.
Yes, indeed. You want to look for that Abraham Lincoln team of rivals. Not many of them are strong enough to do that. Thanks for joining us, Calvin. I appreciate your insights. Calvin Robinson there on the upheaval in the UK. We'll see how Liz Truss goes. Hey, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Boris Johnson too. I've got a feeling we'll hear more from him in the future, but in what role, time will tell, hey.